Nello sat quietly in the back corner of the room, her swollen belly cradled gently as her name was never called, not once. Everyone was laughing, celebrating another woman's baby shower, while she, the widow, was told, "Widows don't get parties. It brings bad luck." But just as the music swelled and the crowd cheered for someone else, a package arrived with no name, only one word on the label, "For Nilo, from Zamo." And in that moment, everything changed. Nilo sat alone in her small room, gently rubbing her round belly. She was 3 months pregnant when her husband, Zamo, died in a terrible accident. Since then, everything changed. People from the village stopped visiting her. They gave her fake pity, but no one stayed. Her in-laws, instead of supporting her, whispered that she brought bad luck to their family. They believed that a widow carrying a baby was a curse. Nilo's friends had planned a baby shower for her, but suddenly it was cancelled. No one said it directly, but she overheard someone say, "How can we celebrate a woman whose husband just died?" That sentence cut deep. It felt like they were saying she didn't deserve joy anymore. Even at church, people avoided her. Some looked at her belly with fear, as if a pregnant widow was a problem. No one asked her how she felt. No one asked if she needed help. It was as if her pain had become invisible. But inside her heart, Nilo still held onto a small light of hope. She remembered how Zamo used to talk to her belly, sing to it, and dream of holding their baby. That memory kept her going. She wanted to cry, scream, or even run away, but she stayed strong. She wore a quiet smile, even when she felt like breaking. Deep inside, she believed that something good could still come, even in the middle of all the sadness. She didn't know how or when, but she trusted that Zamo wouldn't just leave her without a sign or a promise. And even though the village stayed silent, her heart still whispered softly, "Hold on, Nilo. Don't give up yet." While other women in the village had baby showers filled with music, balloons, cakes, and dancing, Nilo was told to stay at home and stay quiet. No one invited her. No one asked her to join. Even the women she once laughed with crossed the street when they saw her coming. It was like being pregnant. As a widow was a shame, something to hide. People didn't say it out loud, but their actions screamed it. Nilo was no longer treated like a mother-to-be. She was treated like a walking curse. Even in church, where everyone should be welcome, she felt the sting of silence. The same people who once prayed with her now gave her cold stares. Someone whispered near the church door, "Pregnant widows should keep low. It's not good to show joy when there's grief." Those words followed her like a shadow. Her best friend, Amaka, tried to change things. She went around asking others if they could still throw a small shower, just to make Nilo feel loved. But the elders shut her down quickly. One old woman shook her head and said firmly, "It's bad luck to gather for a grieving womb." Just like that, the plan ended. Nilo heard about it. She smiled sadly and said nothing. That night, she cried into her pillow until her chest hurt. But then, a soft memory came to her, a voice from the past, Zamo's voice. He once held her close, looked into her eyes, and said, "If anything ever happens to me, don't let the world silence you. You deserve joy no matter what." At the time, she thought he was just being sweet, but now, it felt like he had seen something coming. It felt like his words were seeds, planted deep inside her heart, just waiting for the right time to grow. Nilo wiped her tears and held her belly tighter. She whispered to her baby, "Your daddy believed in us. He had a plan. I know it." Deep down, something told her this wasn't the end. Something was coming. Something Zamo had left behind. She didn't know what it was yet, but she was sure it would speak louder than all the silence around her. One quiet afternoon, Nilo sat on the floor in her bedroom, folding small baby clothes she had bought from a street vendor. Tiny socks, soft onesies, and little caps. Each item held a dream, a silent promise for the baby growing inside her. As she reached for a drawer to put them away, her hand brushed against something hard, Zamo's old journal. The cover was worn out, and the pages had turned a little yellow from age, but Nilo never had the strength to open it since his death, until now. With shaky hands, she opened the journal slowly. The smell of his cologne still lingered faintly between the pages. Her eyes scanned over Zamo's handwriting. Notes, jokes, baby name ideas, dreams of the future. Her heart ached. Then, something slipped out from between 2 pages and landed on her lap. An envelope. It was slightly wrinkled, sealed, and had her name written on it in his bold handwriting. Her fingers froze. The date on it made her chest tighten. It was written just 3 days before his death. Her breath caught as she opened the envelope carefully. Inside, there was a small note, simple and short, but it hit her like a wave. It read, "I planned something. If I don't make it back, it will." That was all. Just that one line. Nilo stared at the note, her heart racing. What did he plan? What was coming? And who would bring it? A mix of fear and hope rose in her. She pressed the note to her chest and closed her eyes. It was like Zamo had reached out from beyond to remind her she wasn't alone. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were different. They weren't just sad, they were full of wonder. Zamo had planned something. He had prepared for this. Somehow, even in death, he was still taking care of her, still showing up, still keeping his promise. Nello whispered, "You didn't forget me, did you, Zamo?" She felt a spark inside, the first real spark of curiosity and courage she had felt in weeks. Whatever he planned, it was out there, and it was coming. The whole village seemed excited that day. Balloons were flying, chairs were lined up, food was everywhere, and music played loudly. People were dancing, laughing, and taking pictures. It was a big baby shower, but not for Nilo. It was for Zamo's cousin's wife. Everyone was invited. Everyone, except Nilo. Nilo knew she wasn't welcome, but something inside her told her to go anyway. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was pain. Maybe it was the quiet hope that someone, anyone, might remember her. She didn't dress up like the others. She didn't wear makeup or fancy clothes. She simply wrapped her belly in a long gown and walked slowly to the celebration, standing far away from the decorated center. She didn't bring a gift. She didn't expect to sit at the front. She just sat alone on the last bench under the mango tree, far from the noise, far from the people. Her eyes followed the smiling women in colorful wrappers, dancing around the celebrated mother-to-be. They poured drinks. They played games. They cheered loudly every time someone shouted, "To the new mother!" But none of it was for her. Still, Nilo sat there quietly. Her hands rested on her belly, and her heart felt heavy. She wondered if her baby could feel her sadness. She whispered to her stomach, "One day, you'll know. Your daddy loved you." Then, something unexpected happened. The music stopped. The MC, holding a microphone, looked confused for a moment. Then he said, Please excuse the interruption, but we have a special delivery. For a Nelo." The whole place went quiet. Heads turned. Whispers started. Nello blinked, unsure if she heard right. "For who?" someone asked. "Did he say Nelo?" The MC repeated it. "Yes, a package just arrived at the gate. It's addressed to Nello." All eyes turned toward the back, toward her. Nello sat frozen. Her heart beat faster. She stood slowly, not sure what to do. The MC waved gently. "Please, Mum. It's yours." Whispers turned into gasps. People moved aside as Nello, the widow no one wanted to celebrate, walked toward the front, unsure, shaking, but drawn by something deep. She didn't know what was in the delivery. She didn't know who sent it. But as the box was placed before her and everyone stared, something inside her whispered, "Zamo didn't forget you." And for the first time in a long time, Nilo felt seen. People whispered all around as Nilo slowly stepped forward. Her hands were shaking. Her feet felt heavy, like they didn't want to move. But something pulled her closer to the box placed at the center of the party. Everyone watched her. The woman no one wanted to celebrate. The widow they had ignored. Now the whole village waited to see what was inside the box with her name on it. She reached out and opened it carefully. Right on top was a small screen, like a tablet. It blinked to life, and suddenly, Zamo's face appeared. Her heart nearly stopped. Gasps filled the air as his voice began to play. Zamo was smiling in the video, but his eyes were soft and full of love. He said, "If you're watching this, then I didn't make it home, but I made a promise to you, and I will keep it, even from far away." Nalo covered her mouth, trying not to cry out loud. People were silent, frozen, listening. Zamo continued, "I know our people may say grief and joy cannot stay in the same room, but they're wrong. You carry life, and that deserves to be honored. You deserve celebration, Nilo. So I did something." Under the screen was a soft white cloth. Nilo lifted it and saw the next item, a beautiful, handmade baby crib. Her name was carved into the wood, for Nilo and baby Z. The wood smelled fresh. The design was gentle and full of love. It wasn't just a crib, it was a message. You matter, you're not alone. Tears rolled down Nilo's face, but there was more. At the bottom of the box were bundles of letters, real handwritten letters tied with ribbons. Each envelope had different names on it, people Nilo had never met before. Some letters were from widows, some from mothers, some from strangers who had lost loved ones, but found strength again. Zamo had contacted a support group online months before his death. He told them about Nilo, about her strength, about how he feared he might not return. And he asked them, "If I'm not here, will you be her village?" Now, those strangers had become family. Nilo looked around. The crowd that once judged her now stood in silence, some with tears in their eyes. They had never seen love expressed like this. A man who was no longer alive had found a way to still show up for the woman he loved. And in that moment, Nilo no longer felt forgotten. She felt chosen. As people gathered around the food table, curious about the box and its surprises, someone gently placed the screen there and pressed play again. The video lit up brightly, and Zamo's smiling face appeared, clear and full of life. But the moment he spoke, the room went still. His first words made hearts drop. "If you're seeing this," Zamo said softly, "then I didn't make it. But I refuse to let the world bury your joy with me." Everyone froze. You could hear a pin drop. Even those who had judged Nilo, those who whispered she brought bad luck, now stood in silence, eyes wide, hearts shaken. Zamo looked into the camera like he was looking straight at Nilo. His voice didn't shake. It was strong, full of love. "You, Nilo," he said, "are the strongest woman I've ever known. You are carrying a life we both prayed for. That baby inside you is not a reminder of loss. He is a promise of hope." Nilo pressed her hand against her chest, trying to hold herself together. Her eyes filled with tears, and she wasn't alone. All around her, people started wiping their faces, even the ones who had never defended her before. Zamo continued, "I know our traditions say widows should stay quiet, stay hidden, but I say, let the world see your strength. Let them dance for you. Let them sing for the life you're bringing. Because love doesn't end when someone dies." He smiled gently in the video, then looked down for a second, as if thinking of the right words. "I made a few plans," he added. "You'll see them soon. But just remember, you deserve happiness. You deserve celebration. And I will always be proud of you." As the video ended, the room stayed quiet for a long moment. No one dared to speak. Zamo's words had touched something deep in everyone. The shame they had thrown on Nilo now felt heavy on their own shoulders. Even the elders, who once called it bad luck, could not argue with the love they had just witnessed. Nilo wasn't just a widow anymore. She was the woman a man had loved so deeply. He reached from beyond death to lift her up. And now, the whole village finally saw her. As the last image of Zamo faded from the screen, and the silence in the room held heavy with emotion, something unexpected happened. The doors at the back of the hall slowly opened. Everyone turned their heads, confused and curious. Then, one by one, a group of women began walking in. Some were old, some young. Some wore bright colors, some simple clothes. But each of them carried something wrapped carefully in their hands. Gifts. They walked with quiet strength, like women on a mission. No one had seen them before. The villagers whispered to each other, wondering who they were and why they had come. But these women didn't seem nervous. They walked straight to the front, to where Nilo stood, still wiping her tears from the video. One of them, a kind-looking older woman, stepped forward and smiled gently at Nilo. "We came for you," she said softly. "Zamo wrote to us. He told us about you, about the baby, about the silence that might follow his death. And he begged us, if he couldn't be here for you, would we come instead?" Nilo gasped quietly. Her hands trembled as she held her belly. These were the people Zamo had contacted, strangers who somehow already felt like family, women who had also known pain. Some were widows, just like her. Some were mothers who had walked through fire and come out stronger. Some were midwives who had held life and death in their hands. They weren't just guests. They were warriors of womanhood. One by one, they handed Nilo their wrapped gifts. Not all were expensive, but each had meaning. A handmade blanket, a prayer cloth, a letter of hope, a carved baby toy, a story of survival. And as the gifts piled up beside her, so did her strength. Nilo didn't feel alone anymore. These women had come not out of pity, but out of deep understanding. They didn't care about village gossip, old traditions, or cruel words. They had come for one reason: to stand with her, to lift her, to remind her that love doesn't die when someone's gone. It grows stronger in the hearts of those who care. And on that day, The baby shower no one wanted to throw became the most beautiful gathering the village had ever seen. Because it wasn't just about gifts. It was about a promise, a bond, and a man's love that reached farther than death. The music came back on, but now it was different. It wasn't for the cousin's wife anymore. This time, it was for Nilo. Slowly, the women who had walked in began to move the tables around. Some cleared space at the center. Others began to lay out new decorations, soft and bright, the kind you would use to welcome a baby with love, not sadness. The gifts that the women brought were placed on a new table, but soon, others from the village, those who had once kept their distance, also started to come forward, adding small packages, clothes, toys, and even food. Something had shifted in the room. People were no longer ashamed or afraid. The silence that had once wrapped around Nilo like a blanket was finally breaking. And then came the hugs. Women she had never met, men who had once passed her without a word, all now came up to her, smiling, holding her hand, saying kind things. Many of them told her stories about Zamo, stories Nilo had never heard before, how he had helped someone's mother fix her roof, how he had paid a school fee quietly for a struggling neighbor, how he had once sat with a grieving father for hours just to listen. Each story was like a piece of Zamo being returned to her, showing her how deeply he had lived, how deeply he had loved. As Nilo stood there, surrounded by warmth and care, something surprising happened. She laughed, not just a small smile, but a full laugh, the kind that rises from a heart that is finally breathing again. Her eyes shone, her shoulders relaxed, and in that moment, she felt alive. And then, the baby kicked. Right there in the middle of the joy, like it wanted to dance too. Nilo placed her hand on her belly and smiled with tears in her eyes. This baby, born out of love and sorrow, was being welcomed with hope. It was a baby shower she never saw coming, a celebration born from pain, but transformed by love, not just for her or her child, but for the memory of a man who had refused to let grief steal the joy his family deserved. That day, Nilo knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone, and joy had found its way back to her. Zamo's family stood quietly at the back of the room, watching everything unfold in silence. They had never believed Nilo deserved a celebration. When she was still mourning and carrying their unborn grandchild, they had turned away from her, whispering that it was bad luck, that she brought shame, that no party should be for a widow. They had refused to talk about her, refused to help, and refused to show up when she needed them most. But now, as the music played and laughter filled the air, the whole community was gathered, not just a few friends, but people from far and wide. Strangers had come to celebrate Nilo and the new life she carried. The tables overflowed with gifts, and warm hands held hers with kind words. The love and support were real and loud, and it was all happening without a single word from Zamo's family. They stood there, stunned and speechless. The shame on their faces was clear. They had shut Nilo out when she needed them the most, and now everyone else was showing up. Strangers who became her family, friends who never left her side, and a community who finally saw her pain and her strength. It was a hard sight to bear, watching the woman they had rejected being surrounded by love they refused to give. And then, in the silence between the laughter and music, Zamo's final words from the video echoed through the room. Family isn't just who shares your blood, it's who shows up for you. Those words hung in the air, heavier than anything anyone could say. They cut deeper than any anger or bitterness, because they spoke the truth. Blood might connect people, but love, care, and presence build a real family. Zamo had known this before his death. He had reached out to others who would become Nilo's family when his own refused. Now, those words were a lesson for everyone in the room, especially for those who thought family meant only blood ties. The family who stood silent and cold had lost more than they realized, because true family shows up, in good times and bad, in joy and sorrow. Nilo smiled softly, feeling stronger than ever. She didn't need those who had turned their backs. She had found a new family made of love, kindness, and loyalty. And that was the greatest gift Zamo had left her. Weeks later, after many long and lonely nights, Nilo gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy. The moment she held him in her arms, all the pain and sadness seemed to fade just a little. She looked into his eyes and saw a future full of hope. She named him Zarim, which means he who carries the light. It was a name filled with promise, a symbol that even after the darkest times, light and love could grow strong. On the day of Zarim's naming ceremony, the whole village gathered. It was a simple celebration, but filled with so much meaning. To everyone's surprise, the very women who had once shunned Nilo, who avoided her and whispered behind her back, came forward to ask for forgiveness. They admitted their mistakes and said they were sorry for the pain they caused. But Nilo didn't want revenge or anger. She had already won in a way they never could. Her victory wasn't about making them suffer. It was about rising above the hurt, finding peace, and embracing joy again. Nilo had carried her grief silently, but now joy had bloomed where sorrow once lived. Her strength and love for Zarim lit up the room and warmed the hearts of everyone present. Her husband's final gift was more than just the baby or the surprises he left behind. It was the light he gave Nilo, a light that healed, a light that changed not only her life, but the whole village. The people saw how love could conquer pain and how one person's courage could inspire many. In that moment, Nilo knew she was not alone anymore. Zarim was a living proof of hope, of love, and of a new beginning. The shadows of the past had lifted, replaced by a bright future filled with promise. And that was the greatest gift anyone could ever receive. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs hope today. Hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story that inspires and uplifts. Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you do if you were in Nilo's shoes? Let's keep this conversation going.